So this time what we're going to do is we're going to look a little bit more at the character blueprints and how we could manipulate these to create something like a hover or a jetpack. So let's open our character blueprints by selecting our player, and in our hierarchy it's hitting edit third person blueprint. Now what we're going to do is locate our jump, and let's grab our jump, move it to the side so we've got a bit of space to work with. To navigate your screen, just hold right click and we can just drag this comment box. So we have this input called input action jump, and then it applies jump, which is a separate function. Let's have a quick look at what these inputs actually are. So if I move the screen out of the way and go to my project settings, I'll be able to see the current inputs that have been made for us. Like I said, I've used the starter project on this, and it comes with a default character. So I'm just going to scroll down until I see input. We have action and axis. So axis represents to the controls, those are your thumbsticks, because they're represented as a 0 to 1 or a -1 to 1 value. So it's just like a float in a range, whereas these are more like an on and off system. So as you can see, we've got jump, which has got spacebar or gamepad face button and all kinds of different inputs. Now we could create another one by hitting this plus, and let's call this jetpack, and let's give jetpack a value of, I don't know, X. We'll press X on the keyboard, and if you've got a game controller you could add another one, and I'll do right trigger on this one. So when right trigger is pressed or X on our keyboard, we want to hover. Now if we go back to our blueprint, and we can go down till we find inputs, action events, and jetpack. Or we could just do a search for jetpack. So when jetpack is pressed, this is what we're going to want to do. Now we only want to be able to use our jetpack when we've jumped. So when jump is pressed, this is going to activate the jump, and when it's released it's going to stop jumping. So actually we're going to want to start from here. Now to use this, like I said, we only want this to actually work. So if this is pressed, then we want to be able to proceed. We're going to use something called a gate. Now what a gate does is, if the gate is open, imagine like a real life gate, like on a fence to a door. If it's open you can proceed through. However, if it's closed, it's going to stop dead there. So when jetpack is pressed, it's going to go through, but we need to check that if jump is pressed, then it will be open. It'll be open, and we're not going to use released for this, because otherwise we'd constantly have to look at that. We're going to use a different system, but so for now, if this is pressed, it's going to open our gate, which is going to start closed. And then when this is pressed, it's going to go through. Now, I always like to just to make sure that this works by doing a print string. And I'm just going to do a float, and this is going to say, when it floats, boom, get that done. Now, as well as this, we want it to do two things, because we're going to need to close it. So we're also going to want to create a delay. And let's say we have a, for now, we'll just do a 3-second window. So we're going to have a 3-second window, and what that is going to do is it's going to close our gate. So once this goes through, it's going to count to 3 and then close it. So I'm just going to wire this around to close. Now we want both to happen at the same time, so I'm actually going to use something called a sequence. So we can hold Alt and disconnect this and get ourselves a sequence. Now a sequence will do pretty much just fire all of them. You can add more pins to this if you need to, but we don't. So let's try that. So when we run and jump, it says float. Excellent. So we know the system is working. Now the game works through use of gravity. Well, that's how the physics work, and it's got a simulation of gravity. So we're going to edit the gravity scale. And to do so, we want to set gravity scale. Should we do a mesh? Let's just set enable gravity. Can we not set gravity scale? Let's get a character movement by just dragging it from here. It's going to talk directly to the character movement system. And then let's get gravity, set gravity scale. And we're going to set gravity scale to, I don't know, something since it's flowing, let's go to 0.1. And we're going to also want a duplicate of this, and we could just get it again, or we could just press Ctrl W to duplicate and make sure we wire this up so it knows what our target is. And we're going to want to reset our gravity back to normal. So instead of this going here, let's just wire this up. So after 3 seconds, set gravity back to normal and then close. So let's hit compile and save. And then I'll just grab my controller. Ooh. So that is definitely working like a jetpack. Because we've got a 0 point note number, you can see how it's sort of raising me up. To change that, we just need to edit the value. So let's just say 0.05, and that should slowly now decrease. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to take another reference for these, or shall we? Yeah. So when this is released, because mine just went for 3 seconds then regardless until it closed. So when this is released, I'm also going to feed this back through in here. So when it's released, we'll drop back down to the ground. So if we run and float, oop, cheated. So now when I press it, it releases, which is pretty good. So that'd be just a case of going through, finding the numbers that you quite like and that you're happy with, and playing with those. And we can comment this section, because this is mostly done now. We could comment this part off by highlighting it all, pressing C and saying jetpack. And for fun, if you wanted to, I'm going to go back to my viewport and I'm going to add a mesh. I'll just add a, should we go for a cylinder? Let's add a cylinder. Cylinder is going to be the jetpack. I'm just going to lock this off, and this will scale it now in this position. There you go. We've now got a jetpack. And let's just make sure it's attached to our mesh by dragging it and dropping it there. And now we've got ourselves a little jetpack, which actually isn't stuck into the ground because of how the animation works, but it's fine. We're not going to worry too much about that. In fact, let's make this a little bit more fun. If you've got start content on, we can go into particles. Getting a bit carried away now, you don't actually have to do this part. Should we do some fire? Let's drag some fire onto it. So let's add a component, a particle system, call it jetpack party. And in here, we're going to grab our template, which is going to be, let's just go for fire. And we're going to want this at the bottom, rotate it 90 degrees. I'm just going to try and find like the right position. Now, I mean, you'd be better wanting sort of like a stream, but it'll do. I'm just going to scale it, to to about 0.4. Unlock it. Oh no, Control Z and it's going to crash. Oh, it's okay, it's back. Let me just unlock that. I'm going to set it to 111, but instead we want you to be about 0.5. Just trying to like sort of thin it out a bit. There you go. That'll do for now. It's only for a mess about. And with the jetpack selected, let's just go down and find where it's auto activate, untick that, and let's go to our jetpack and say, we'll extend this box out a bit as well. We'll get access to this and we'll say activate. Set active. New active. I'm just going to duplicate you and I'm going to say not active. And now, hopefully, oh, I pressed compile and I got an error because I hadn't wired this one up. Hopefully now when we run jump, yeah, we get a little bit. It's not great, but it's because we're just using the default fire. It'll do though.